What was the cringiest thing you did in your first relationship? 13-year-old me was so excited that my boyfriend, now ex-husband, asked me to be his girlfriend that I excitedly jumped up and down and shouted, "Thank you," again and again. I felt the urge to repeat it when he signed our divorce decree 10 years later. We were in love for years. We married when I turned 18. When I was almost 20, he had a fling with a friend's sister. I left for a bar at noon the day after I found it out. When I left the bar with another friend, my ex-husband pursued us in a car chase, ran us off the road twice, and chased after me into a gas station where I begged someone to call 911 while I hid behind the counter. Someone who witnessed the chase had already called it in, and a bouncer from the place across the intersection had come and subdued my ex-husband until the police came. I should also add, he fought me tooth and nail over the divorce. Demands that were laughable, such as a request for a ring that he quite literally threw into Lake Erie, a watch that never was in my possession, a broken TV stand, and clothing of his that he accidentally burned with a pile of mine he ignited in our kitchen during a fit of rage. From when I filed for divorce until he signed, there was about 3 years time passed. From I do to I'm done in record time. Story 2. I was walking with my girlfriend after we had gone to the park to make out, and I was in an elevated state of giddiness or excitement. She was asking me to do something and saw her gesture to her mouth or lips. I couldn't hear what she was trying to say, but I just winged it and I licked her. My hearing came back just in time for me to hear her explain that that was not what she was asking me to do. Being the wordsmith I wasn't in my teenage years, I couldn't even stumble out a rough outline of an excuse for what my train of thought was. Honestly, I couldn't get the words out of my idiot mouth until I was about 27. Communication has been difficult for me for a long time. Here's what she actually wanted. She had a hard candy in her mouth that she did not want anymore and was asking if I wanted to take it from her. I don't really know if that's better or worse. This was literally 19 years ago and I still lie awake thinking about that crap. Haven't heard from her in over 10 years, but I often wonder if she thinks about that too. Story 3. One of my first ones anyways. I was going to try sexy time with my lady, and though I only tried it like 2 times total before with someone else, I felt like I was well versed in the subject. Anyways, we're under the covers, as not to get too descriptive. I'm ready to go. I was under the impression that I could perhaps get her excited if there is no easy way to explain this, so I'm just going to say, if I essentially scrape my member back and forth on her. Think sharpening a weapon. Yes, exactly that motion back and forth. Well, she did not really understand why I was doing that, but allowed me to do it as she thought I liked it and was not very well versed in the matter either. I think back on what her face looked like, and I will say with certainty, in retrospect, that's not what pleasure looks like. I asked her the next day if she liked it, and she said it was absolutely terrible. For which I was forever apologetic because I didn't really like it either. I just thought maybe she would. I think about it today and almost have an aneurysm for cringing so hard. Story 4. I had a crush on a really nice girl when I was 14, but we had never really talked or had much of a conversation even in the classes we had. Sent her a flower on Valentine's Day without my name, but someone told her. Had her friend ask if she was interested in me, to which she said that she doesn't really know me. Here comes the cringe. 14-year-old me took that literally and then waited for her when we both walked between some classes. Proceeded to tell her my life story and history of where I had lived, what I had done from birth to now. I can't believe I was that awkward. At one point, I tried to compliment her as well, but used the wrong word and I could tell that really set her off. So I cut my losses and figured out I had really screwed up, was super creepy, and then left her alone. 1 year later, without any interaction since then, we now had a common friend and were walking with said friend down the hall. She asks me how I did in the test in one of her classes, but I don't respond. She signals at me with a, "Hello?" To which I reply, "To me? Sorry, I didn't think you would ever talk to me again after last year." We eventually became friends, and I just laughed off the super awkward way I acted when I had a crush on her. We went out as friends a few times, and she was really fun to talk to in one of her classes senior year. Glad I was able to have a good friend in the end. Story 5. My then girlfriend and I were both in 8th grade, exactly a decade ago, and we were pretty frisky for a pair of 14-year-olds. My small town had a scenic gazebo next to a large pond in a pretty busy downtown area, where we met up for our first date on a sunny Sunday afternoon during the spring. She and I were young and inexperienced, but we were determined to explore each other. I mean, I was feeling some hype yourself up in the mirror, don't screw it up type of way when I woke up in the morning. We hung out and chatted at the white gazebo for a while. I was feeling the chemistry. I know she did too because it got physical between us real quick. All there, right in plain view of all the suburban moms and dads driving by trying to enjoy their nice weekend. I knew it wouldn't be long now. She wanted it. No doubt about it in my mind. She decided to make the first move. This was it. The day I transitioned from a boy to a man. The first time. That special time. The first kiss. Wait, how long do I kiss her for? Do I keep my eyes open? I panicked. I put my hand on her face and pushed her away. Wait, you said you had a PB&J earlier, right? Yeah, why? Oh, darn, that terrible. I'm allergic to peanuts. Well, I'm gonna go home now. Bye. I'm not allergic to peanuts. Still makes me cringe to this day. Well, at least he avoided a potentially awkward situation. Or did he? Story 6. This is so effing cringy. We went to school together as well. I stayed up all night and farmed items for her for a headgear that she really wanted in an online game we also played together. This was not an easy headgear. It required not just a crap ton of time, but some serious investment and resources from my end as well. I got everything ready and waited by the last place she logged out, since I know she'd probably log in quickly in the morning to chat with her mutual friends or guildmates. It is at this point I'll mention that this was Valentine's Day, and I had also followed up by sending her roses through our school's anonymous rose program. You could personalize the note, however. You bet back I did. The combination of her logging in that morning to see a headgear and then going to school to get roses sounded good in my 15-year-old mind, I suppose. When she didn't log in, I was peeved and annoyed. When I couldn't find her all that day and nothing was going to plan, I snapped and sent her a really emotional, clingy, and cringy message about what I had done for her and that she should appreciate that. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it was not a good plan. That evening, she sent me one paragraph telling me she was tired of my clinginess and she's had enough. Story 7. Never actually dated. We weren't in any classes, so we'd trade notes and talk between classes, hang out before school, maybe talk on the phone occasionally, and that was it. My parents never gave advice, refused to take me anywhere other than school, and were always against me leaving the neighborhood. It took maybe a month before they noped out. Think of me asking to give a kiss on Valentine's Day and planting one on the cheek and putting the nail in the coffin. They had a mutual friend tell me during lunch that it was over, and I remember specifically my reaction. Really? Oh, that is terrible. Okay, thanks. The rest of high school didn't fare much better either. 2 to 3 others that I was pretty much repeating my same behavior towards. Might have gone to the movies once with each, but was clueless and watched the entire movie each and every time. Story 8. He told me that he loved me after 4 weeks, as he drove me home and I didn't know what to do with that. So I did what any sensible 16-year-old would do. I said, I love me too, because that's my dad's response to I love you. I then promptly ran into my house. I also learned I was lactose intolerant and had a very sensitive stomach during that relationship. I wasn't used to Western cooking, like Canadian, mishmash of different types of Western Europe cooking, involving crap tons of butter and cheese. It tasted great, but my stomach didn't enjoy it. So one night after dinner, I had a terrible stomachache, so I used the bathroom and unleashed probably the biggest one in my life to date. It flushed and everything was fine and dandy, except for the smell. My God, the smell. This bathroom was also off the first floor hallway. I turned the fan on and wafted to the door, but nothing helped. Apparently because my ex and his dad argued over who stank up the bathroom so badly no one could use it. I got teased for it by the whole family, mostly my ex, to be honest, and then became very uncomfortable. Story 9. I hope this gets buried. God, this story is actually so scary because my friends know my account. Screw it, whatever. I was in a really bad relationship replaced with someone for about 4 years. In the heat of my emotion, I decided one day on my bus ride home I would surprise my crush. I knew this girl for about a year. I was in 10th grade and took a bus, too young to drive, to their house. With their strict parents, I thought it wouldn't be too late and she could leave the house to walk the dog. So many bad things happened while doing this spontaneous surprise trek for the girl I was so into. It was late October in Canada, so it was cold and all I had was a hoodie. Her place was far away, and afternoon or evening traffic to get to her place took forever. It got dark early, late October. I took 2 buses. I was bragging about how I was surprising my girlfriend to the driver, and he didn't care, but I was just so excited. I didn't have phone data, so I had to take a screenshot and remember which way to go. Never been there before. I forgot she had piano lessons on Mondays. So when I got to her house, I was texting her, "Hey, look out your window. I'm here. Surprise." She was not amused at all. She screamed at me over text, and I started to walk away, ashamed. I then turned back and left a note under a planter that said, "Maybe next time," with a heart and a smiley face. I texted her, "Hey, when you get home, check under the planter. I left something for you." So I'm walking back, still upset and bummed and feeling all stupid. I'm freezing and I need to whiz. The bus schedule in the outskirts of town is so slow, so I walked to the nearby pond to take a whiz in the trees. But it was so cold, I messed up unzipping my pants because some couple came up out of nowhere walking a big dog, and I freezed out and whizzed mostly in my pants. I literally couldn't do anything. So I just walked to the bus stop smelling. The same driver I took the second bus to this place and was bragging about was the same one that picked me up. And he looked at me all confused, but once I got on and he got a whiff, his face changed. And I was so embarrassed and ashamed. My phone then turned off so I couldn't text my mom I was safe or on my way home. Holy hell, it was the worst. When I finally started walking home from the bus terminal, a cop pulled me over mid-walkway, questioning me because there was a robbery and it looked suspicious. It was a schmuck cop I had a run-in with before, but that's a different story. He saw me and questioned me about who, what, where, why, and then why do you smell? I was so defeated. I literally just walked away and started crying. My mom was livid that I got back home at like 8 in a school night. My crush then was upset that I did that. I never told her about whizzing myself. Story 10. This guy got pestered into asking me out on a date. I said yeah so as to not embarrass him. We went for a movie. He flung popcorn everywhere. It wasn't even a scary movie. We proceeded to a Ferris wheel. He asked me to be on it alone with me. Got rejected due to a balancing issue. Ended up pairing with an old man who wouldn't stop talking to me while his daughter kept talking to him. He offered to walk me to the bus station. I was happy. Got on the bus and he stepped in. I thought it was sweet for him to see me home. Got off the bus, he got off too. Thought he wanted to retake the bus from the other direction. Walked back to my apartment. He followed behind. Not beside. Behind. Started to think it was creepy. Opened the door to my apartment. Said bye and went in. He followed me into my apartment. I was panicking. The rest of the night was history. He's my fiancé now. Well, that escalated quickly. Or slowly, depending on how you look at it. Story 11. Not my first relationship, but certainly the only remotely good one. Backstory. She was an old friend from a youth police cadet program we both attended. Drop dead gorgeous, and didn't know it. We hadn't seen each other for a good few years. We had been talking over Facebook. She had helped me through my depression and misuse. I had well and truly fallen for her. And the way she spoke to me, cared for my well-being, I thought she must have liked me as well. First date, we met up for coffee. She greets me with a literal running, jumping, spinning hug. So there's me thinking, holy crap, she must really like me. Not 2 hours later over coffee, she puts a pic of us in her Snap story captioned, "He's like a brother to me." Then proceeds to tell me how her mom thought she was going on a date and her response was, "Ew, no, he's just a really good friend." Gut-wrenching, to say the least. Fast forward to now, and the third anniversary of that day passed a few weeks ago. And despite it, we're going to be celebrating 3 years of being together on the 25th of this month. She also hates this story being retold. Story 12. Oh, God. At least my cringy thing is a silver lining at the end. When I was 14, I started to go through this hippie phase. I only ever wore long floral dresses, braided my hair, and talked a lot of BS about getting back to nature and being one with the earth. I met Javier, not his real name, at a flower arranging class for teenagers. Yep, I thought I was so sophisticated because a much older man of 16 was showing an interest in me. He was from Spain and the only boy in the class. He was going to school here in Ireland for a year. We lived quite far from each other. And I don't think he realized because A, he never came to my area because I didn't want my parents to find out I had a boyfriend, and B, I didn't really know the city well at that stage. He knew where he lived, where his school was, where the flower arranging class was, and that's about it. I'd spend a good 50% of my babysitting money every week on bus and train fares to the other side of the city to see him. We spent hours sitting in the park together, making daisy chains, braiding each other's hair. He had hair way past his shoulders, singing to each other and writing crappy poetry. We discussed at length our plans to get married and save the planet together single-handedly. I was head over heels in love. He went back to Spain for 2 weeks at Christmas, and I was completely devastated. I hatched a plan on how to feel closer to him when he was gone. So, for the whole Christmas break from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I studied Spanish using books from the library, Enrique Iglesias songs on YouTube, I didn't tell Javier what I was doing because I wanted it to be a surprise for when he got back. I was so dedicated. I filled up a notebook in those few weeks that I still have somewhere. When he came back, I was so excited to show off my Spanish skills. I started speaking to him in Spanish when we met again. At first, he must have thought I only learned a phrase or two, but when he realized I was able to converse with him, not well, but well enough that he could understand me and I could understand him, he switched to English and said, "Did you learn Spanish?" I said, "Yes, I did it for him," and he said, I can still hear his voice saying this, but it was such a waste of time. I was heartbroken. I spent so much time learning his language and he didn't care at all. I made up some excuse to leave and cried the whole way home on the 2 buses and trains. I sobbed my heart out when I got home and texted him to never speak to me again. He replied, "But what about the whales we were going to save?" I replied, "Screw the whales and you." We never spoke again. However, I ended up getting a degree in modern foreign languages, one of those languages being Spanish. I just looked Javier up on Facebook for the first time in about a decade and a half. He has dreadlocks and works at wherever the wind blows me. Story 13. On a tour bus returning home from a school vacation, I was 14 years old at the time, there was this girl from my class that I really liked, and who I was suspecting also liked me. Driver puts on some smooth songs and a few of my classmates get up and slowly start dancing. I see her staying at her seat. My best friend sitting next to me eggs me to go ask her. I'm sweating and can't feel my face, but I finally give in and get up. As I approach her, I feel like a bundle of nerves. I reach her, I somehow manage to speak, ask her to dance, and to my unimaginable joy, she turns, smiles, and accepts. We start dancing, swaying a little, and it's going pretty well. But then she hugs me and sticks her body on mine. Instant petrification. Instant release. I stand there like an icicle with what must have been the look of absolute horror in my face. She looks up, sees me, and becomes worried, starts asking me what's wrong. I turn without a word and go back to my seat. I stay there for the whole ride back home with mess in my pants, and I don't speak to a soul. Thankfully, after a couple of days, I found the courage to explain to her what happened, and we were together for a few years. What a way to start a relationship. Story 14. I don't count this as my first relationship, but it's still pretty bad. I was a freshman in high school, and I was friends with this girl in my band class. I got along really well, and I was thinking I was starting to develop feelings for her. So I decided to ask her out the next day after our band class ended. One thing to note here is my schedule during the day. I had band class as my third class of 6 during the day, so the band probably ended around 10:30 or 11 a.m. Band class ends, and I muster up the courage to ask her out. She says yes, and I excitedly go off to my next class, math. During math class, we have a test, so of course I'm alone with my thoughts since we're not allowed to talk during the test. I began thinking about the logistics of this brand new relationship I just started a few minutes ago. I quickly realized I don't know what the hell we're going to do. I'm a freshman in high school, and I don't have a job or a driver's license, so clearly I can't drive her to dates unless our parents take us, and I can't pay for the dates either. I begin freaking out about this realization. I think about it so much I end up failing my math test. Later on, I decided that since I have no source of income or method of transportation, that I definitely cannot sustain this relationship I've just started, because I'm smart, due to the fact that I can't take her on dates by myself. At the end of the day, I catch her packing up her trombone and quickly blurt out, "I don't think this is going to work out. I'm going to have to end this," and run away. This relationship literally lasted 4 hours. She, of course, was super mad at me, and I explained why I broke it off later when she was talking to me again. We're still pretty good friends, but she still gives me crap about it to this day. Story 15. The first ex used to play PlayStation once in a while, and I'd sit and watch for a while, and one time he draped his leg across my lap, and I just started absentmindedly petting his leg hair. I didn't even know I was doing it until his grandma walked in and asked me why I was doing it. What can I say? He had soft leg hair. Another thing is the day I lost my V-card. We were messing around for about the 3rd time that day in his grandma's bathroom. It was a big bathroom connected to her room, which also had a couch in it. And his mom had come and started knocking, looking for us. I answered and told her to give me a sec. I got my pants back on and she was waiting outside asking where my ex was at. I told her I didn't know, that he was sitting on the couch when I went to the bathroom, which was true. I went to the bathroom while he was sitting on the couch and I waited for him to go get protection. But she told me that his little sister wanted us to play with her outside. So I went out there and he came around the other side of the house that I didn't even know was a whole other door in his grandma's room. I just thought it was a window because it had curtains on it. Another thing was when we were hanging out for the first time and I took him to my favorite hiding spot, I lived in the middle of the woods. Man, we were making out and he wanted to feel me. I let him, and then he pulled out his thing. And I told him I thought it would be bigger. Still, it kind of makes me cringe for him. Then a couple months later, we were talking and laughing about it, and he told me that he thought I was crazy when I said that. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 16. Oh God, so many cringy things. Where do I start? When I was 13, I saw a girl in Kmart and instantly fell in love, but I was too shy to talk to her. So I would just preempt where she was going in the store and just stand there while waiting for her to walk past in the hope she would strike up a conversation with me. She didn't. We ended up at the same high school, and I would leave her little heart-shaped cards in her bag. I did this for 2 years and barely said a word to her. I stopped and overheard her tell a friend that if she ever finds out who the creepy heart giver is, she's going to have her older brother hurt them. Third year of high school, we started going to the same parties and getting hammered. The intoxicatedness allows me to actually talk to her for more than 5 seconds. And at the end of the night, I walk her home. I get to the door and she goes to hug me. I misinterpret the move and shake her hand. Another party, 5 months later. I'd given up on ever dating her, so I was pretty casual around her. She ends up coming over and sitting on my knee for half the party. My friends were whispering in my ear, "For Christ's sake, Doc, kiss her." But I thought they were reading too much into it. At the end of the night, I end up walking her home, except halfway there, she tells me she would rather go home with me. I took her back to my place, and lying next to her made me so nervous I felt sick. All I could do is hold her hand. Every time she would position herself for a kiss, I would have to get up and dry retch into the toilet. She fell asleep after the 9th time, so I did too. When she woke up, she left without saying a word. A few months later, I moved with my family to another town. Story 17. Whenever I remember this, I have to count to 20 out loud to wash away the cringe. 5th grade disco. Asking girls to slow dance to the best music the 90s had to offer. I hadn't had any luck with any girls in any discos before that, but that was different. I had my Green Day, Dookie, shirt on. Also, that night, the disco was open to kids outside of our own school, so fresh starts and all that. And by gods, it worked. There wasn't just one, but a whole group of girls that kept wanting to ask me to dance. They knew each other and had seen me do my partially blonde front hair. I blame my subsequent balding to that industrial-grade hydroperoxide hair bleach. That night, I was golden. Literally, because of the hair. I could have kept my cool, danced with them, and had a healthy, juvenile experience. Instead, I let it all go to my head. I became hammered with power. Quickly, I turned into what I can only describe as 11-year-old Barry Manilow, with my solo moves, striding past their group and openly judging who I should dance with next. This one move, let me tell you. Them sitting on a bench, I walked past them with a rat-faced grin, my sweaty finger openly scanning their group like some sort of a disco freak. Story 18. My first relationship was pretty mellow because I was that girl for all my crushes that came before. I couldn't have been that bad, right? Starts out a bit innocent. 7th grade, fell in love with this dude we'll call Brian. I did all his assignments that year in 3 subjects except big projects. Don't even know how we got away with it. I honestly think the teachers took pity on me. I found out he liked a certain type of sandwich, so I made my mom make that sandwich down to a brand of mustard every day for my lunch. Brian played all the sports and was always hungry at 10 a.m. I always had an extra sandwich for him. He still doesn't know I didn't eat lunch that year. I went through some stuff and finally wrote a poem about him and how I was going to end it all and I'd miss him. One of the popular girls found it and gave it to him to embarrass or humiliate me. He framed it and put it in his locker. I don't know if that's more cringy from him or from me. Turns to complete stalker. The first guy who ever showed me interest was this guy we'll call Brad. By the time I had all my intel, I had memorized all the license plate numbers to his family's vehicles. So I'd know if it was his mom's white Accord at Walmart, where his parents worked, what his siblings' names were. I had photos of his tattoos, knew his work schedule, workout schedule, and other need-to-know info, all without ever speaking to this kid. He just said it was hot once in the hallway and I lost my mind. This was way before social media too, so I had to do actual groundwork like a little weirdo stalker FBI agent. I ended up getting to know him and being way too in love with him then too, and he knew it. Hilariously, I bought the house across from his parents' house last year, and the Suburban he drove in high school sits in their driveway, so I get reminded of all this daily. I'm sure the first time he saw me, he had PTSD flashbacks. Story 19. Oh man, here I go. It was the winter of 2006. The snow was fluffy, the ice was slippery, and in Ottawa, 8 teenagers were traversing the Rideau Canal, one of the longest outdoor ice rinks in the world. Young Yellow Scarf was there with his friend, now new girlfriend who was a former figure skater. 7 of those teenagers had skates. Yellow Scarf did not.
Everyone was skating around, having a good time. Yellow Scarf was walking like a penguin, but little Yellow Scarf did not care. He was out with his friends. He was out with his girlfriend. About an hour into the track, seemingly on some unknown cue, his friends all departed, leaving him alone with his girlfriend. They came upon a nice bridge that went over the canal, the sides of which were covered in locks to signify eternal love, and probably, eventually, a structural risk. She led him to the bridge like a majestic swan dragging an awkward penguin. She skated around naive Yellow Scarf, doing a wonderful display. She stopped in front of him, looked him in the eye, and approached. "I really like you, Yellow Scarf." "And I you, sweet girlfriend of mine." Suddenly she gave Yellow Scarf that look, the look that means the obvious. Sweet child Yellow Scarf was going to have his first real kiss. He closed his eyes. She closed hers. Like a space shuttle docking with the International Space Station, their little faces lined up and approached. And he missed, and his lips awkwardly landed in her cheek. She was shocked. He was shocked. And she asked what was wrong. He admitted he missed. She laughed and skated away. He passed the bridge and saw his friends there, laughing hysterically. That's the tale of how I missed my first kiss, the ripe age of 16. Story 20. My first kiss. The crush and I had been hanging out for like half the year. We talked every single day, but we were only ever friends. I crushed on her pretty hard, so just being really close friends was like cloud nine. One day she texted and asked me why I hadn't kissed her yet. I didn't even know she liked me. Next time we were together, I was too nervous to do anything all day. We were hanging at the end of the day after school. I popped a mint and told myself when I was gone to kiss her. Then that friend showed up. You know, that one that can't read a room or social cues and can talk forever. I don't even remember the excuse I gave him, but I sent him away a little more aggressively than I should have. I popped another mint and he left. The mint ran out and I told myself now or never. It took every ounce of willpower and strength I had to physically move in for the kiss. So naturally my head rocketed over to her and she recoiled in horror. "You're stupid," she said in exasperation. This was the reaction guys have nightmares about. I remember thinking, well, that's the worst thing that could have happened. I went blank and all the nerves and tension and constrained breathing away. In a surprisingly deep voice, I said, "I'm not stupid." I took her chin in my hand. What kind of man wouldn't be nervous to kiss the girl of his dreams? Bam! Our lips met like magnets. It was glorious. Story 21. My first high school girlfriend. Oh God. We were mostly just equally cringy with each other. Honestly, most of it was her, but I went along with it like an idiot. We did a whole gift thing for monthly anniversaries. Ugh. She gave me her ugly pink stuffed rhino and I slept with it and took it with me whenever I traveled. What a goddamned embarrassment. Speaking of which, I had to go visit family a few states away for a week and I whined about not being with her the whole time. I think I took that pink monstrosity with me everywhere. Every time I gave her a card, which was like all the time with our stupid monthly anniversaries, I felt like I had to make it something so poetic and sickly sweet that she could keep it and treasure it forever. Every time we talked on the phone, which of course was like all the time, we had to say some cutesy little stuff to each other at the end. Not to totally date myself, but The Lion King was one of the first movies we saw together. So of course we thought our love was like Simba and Nala, somehow. Anyway, I know that was one of the things we had to say. Not to mention she sometimes tried to sing, "Can you feel the love tonight?" But when she sang it, I couldn't. I was full of tons of cringe with others too. One girl, she didn't want to actually date. What she actually wanted was just to hang out sometimes and sleep together. But I couldn't even comprehend it. Instead, went straight to sappy, lovesick idiot with her. She would say she just wanted to see each other. And of course, I wanted us to date exclusively, so that led to some semantic discussions. And I never really got it. We'd make out and she would push my hand closer and closer to her, practically begging me. But I had no clue what to do, and pretty much just froze. One day she told me she was just going to stay home from school, so don't bother looking for her. I begged my mom to let me stay home too, and I guess I thought I'd just spend the whole day talking to her on the phone. Except when I called, I got no answer. So I called and called and called and called, pretty much all day. She never answered. I don't totally know what happened, but I'm about 95% sure she spent the day with some other guy. There were other complete catastrophes with this one too. I tried not to be too hard on myself with this one because she was really my first attempt at any sort of real relationship. Another one freshman year of college. Friends made me go out to this dance club. I'm sure you can imagine that's totally not my scene at all. Somehow I ended up with this girl that I, of course, instantly fell in love with. She gives me her page number, and for some reason her address. I would not even think this was true, except for what I know happened after that. Anyway, the very next day, I called the page number, so excited to talk to this girl again. She didn't call back. So, of course, I tried again, and again, and again, and again, and again. In case you hadn't figured it out, I do not take hints too well. After almost an entire day of calling every 5 minutes or so, I finally did leave my dorm room to go get lunch. When I got back, there was a message in my answering machine from her friend that was with her that night. Told me to stop calling because the girl's boyfriend was getting angry. She was just looking for fun that night. Nothing more. Oh my god, I was just crushed. So what did I do? Remember how I said she gave me her address? I wrote her a freaking letter, full of sappy garbage about how amazing I thought she was and how she should give me a chance because we'd be great together. Holy heck, what the hell was wrong with me? Fortunately, I've gotten a lot better. I hope. Story 22. This is the confession of a junior high swinger. Without using the term, my boyfriend and I decided I could make out and fool around with his best friend, and in turn, he could make out and fool around with my best friend. For the life of me, I cannot remember how we came up with the idea or what the preceding discussion entailed. We didn't want to break up, but neither of us were cool being monogamous. All I remember is we had a list of rules, so obviously we discussed it at some length. I would pay good money to remember how we broached the subject with our friends. All I know is that both agreed, and our arrangement lasted for close to a year before his friend got a girlfriend. Hindsight definitely explains why I can't maintain a traditional monogamous relationship now. I've had open FWB arrangements most of my dating. I've yet to find that many guys since that were as open-minded and fluid about the parameters of a relationship. This was all in 1999 to 2000, and I'm from a small Midwest town. I'm sure he thought I was a super cool girlfriend, but it's crazy in the best kind of way to think about being that progressive and him being on board with it at that age. The real cringe part of the whole thing is that I distinctly remember one of the rules being we had to be there when the other person was with a friend, so we would set up bizarre friend swap dates. I don't recall watching it with her much. I'm sure I glanced over some. I can only guess at this point it was to ensure we were not going farther around the bases with the friends than each other. It was mainly accountability-based. Story 23. Not my first relationship, but my first voluntary kiss. This is a girl who had shown no signs of interest in me in the first few months I've known her. She only started acting strangely towards me a few days before this event. And also we look like two of the most incompatible people. She has tattoos, piercings, self-cut, self-dyed hair, and lots of experience. And I'm the opposite. We were lying in the bow of my boat, looking at shooting stars. I'd never seen a shooting star before and claimed they were only in movies. But she said she'd seen them before, so, well, here we are, looking for them. I saw one that was over her and pointed at it. She saw another one over me and pointed at it, then proceeded to wrap her arm around mine and pull it into hers. My arm was stiff on top of hers for a solid 5 minutes. Then when I finally worked up the courage to try to grab her hand, I missed and grabbed her pinky instead. We remained like this. It got worse. She looked at me. I looked at her. Our faces were 5 inches apart. She'd never looked pretty before this moment. I didn't say a word. After a little while, she said, "What are you looking at?" I froze. Imagine a deer that's about to get run over by an 18-wheeler. That's my face. After a few seconds of agony and debating everything, I just jokingly said, "Your face." She got mad, let go of my hand and turned around. I just stared at the sky, questioning if the medicines really did give me autism, debating about how I could end myself. Then I told myself, you can redeem yourself. Try again. So I turned and stared at her. After a few seconds, she stared at me again, and after a few seconds of silence, she got closer, 3 inches from my face. She again said, "What are you looking at?" I considered if this was all mere coincidence once more, but right then and there, I kissed her. After a few seconds, she pushed me away and said, "Finally." And then we continued making out. That was the last time we made out, and our friendship got pretty awkward afterward. But I learned a few valuable lessons, so it's okay. Story 24. This is rich. Prepare yourselves for this one. It causes me actual pain to talk about this one. I dated this guy when I was 14. I was slightly obsessed with him. I did the usual 14-year-old BS, like make out with him, but he never suggested going further, so our entire relationship was essentially me hanging him dry. We dated for a little over a year. He eventually dumped me for another girl a week after my grandfather passed away. I was devastated, heartbroken, dramatically sad. About 2 months later, I started dating his younger brother, who was a year younger than us, and I made out with his brother grossly at a school dance in front of tons of people. We only dated about 2 months. I eventually realized how messed up I was for dating my ex's brother and how I didn't even like him and was doing it for some weird sense of revenge or satisfaction, and ended it with him because it was just a messed up situation. Cringes. Story 25. The first girl I was really into, senior year, when I started talking to her a lot and started hanging out and texting, she seemed like she was super into me. She would do some insanely cringy stuff, jump on me in class and in the hall and yell my name in front of everyone. I did not like being the center of attention, and I would get almost dizzy with embarrassment from the next thing she would do. I met her in the English 4 class we had together, and every day, or every other day, can't remember, we would have to hand in 2 sentences we made using vocab words we got each week, and 1 or 2 people would volunteer every day to read their sentences. And I kid you not, every freaking day, she would read aloud a sentence she wrote about me. I swear, I would almost go into shock from the embarrassment. I had never dealt with this kind of relationship, and not because of her specifically, but I didn't want this to be a public display, which is what she made it. Also, because of stuff like this, I would literally have people walk up to me every day asking, "Are you dating X?" God, it was so cringy, but I put up with it because I really, really like this girl. I made up with it with my own cringe because when I couldn't emotionally take the relationship anymore, I ghosted her and cut off everything for a couple of months, which later turned into a couple of calls and texts and never talking to her again. Yikers. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.